we going to be waiting in red lights this summer? Is the market completely crashing? Is China taking over? And are we going completely broke? Maybe. A lot of people seem to think so. And it might be true, but it really depends on who you listen to and if they actually know what they're talking about. Hey, my name is Shirley Reyes. I manage hundreds of millions of dollars. I've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on behalf of corporate companies like Trump, Hilton, Marriott, Welch's, Nissan, and more. I've been watching the market and what's going on with consumer and corporate spending for the last 15 years of my career. I've taught at universities like the University of Miami, North Carolina State, San Diego State University, and so many more. And I've devoted my life to multiplying money. And now I'm helping you do the same. So in this video, we're gonna talk about what is a recession, are we actually heading into a recession, and why a recession happens. Let's jump in and get it. What is a recession? When someone thinks about a recession, honestly, for the most part, they're thinking about the 2008 Great Recession. They're thinking about COVID-19 and everything that happened thereafter, right? Some of us might even go back to Y2K. You guys remember the big internet boom and everything that happened after that. And then there are the really radicals that are going to be thinking about the Great Depression back in the 1940s, all of which are what we call Great Recessions. And now these are recessions to a crazy level. But the reality is recessions are completely normal and they happen every single cycle. And usually, by the way, a cycle is anywhere from 18 to 24 months. So what is a recession? A recession is simply a compression of spend, right? Think about it from this perspective. When you're buying real estate property, there are going to be seller markets and buyer markets. Traditionally, a seller market happens when there is a boom, okay? So there is something going on. We are so excited. There is a lot of buyers. There's a lot of people spending money. I can sell my house for higher. A boom causes a buyer's market. Oh, there's now not as many buyers, but there's more sellers. There's people trying to get out of homes. So I, as a buyer, have the upper hand. You need me more than I need you, right? So a recession tends to cause a buyer's market. Not every recession is made equal. There are great recessions, but there's also recessions throughout a financial cycle as well. Recessions even happen in your own life, right? You may be in a situation where you get a job and they give you a raise and they give you a bonus and now you're outside buying Lamborghinis. And then next year, the raise is not so big. You have a baby, you're growing a family, you're saving for a wedding, and you're saving money. So typically, a recession tends to happen when a majority of people in the United States are saving money for one reason or another. And well, yes, I can get into the inverted yield curve graph and the federal interest rates and governmental spending and this, that, and the other. The reality is the court of public opinion holds true 99.9% of the time. A recession tends to happen when people are scared to spend money. When are people scared to spend money? Typically, when the news cycle or politicians are telling you something bad is coming. The pandemic is my favorite example of this, you guys, because there was a period of uncertainty, right? We don't know what's going to happen. I always say, when I look back at the pandemic, it's such a funny story for me personally, because I think for so long of that entire cycle, we knew something was coming, but we didn't know what. And so it was a situation where from one day to the next, if you're in the hospitality industry, March 13th through March 18th, all of a sudden everyone stopped spending money, right? Because we had this 2-week lockdown that was going to happen for 2 weeks. So we were going to stop and then we were going to restart and then we didn't know. And then the 2-week lockdown ended up becoming months of lockdown, which ended up becoming a year of lockdown in certain cities, in certain states, in certain situations, right? And so now we're not working in office and people are getting rid of their office spaces, so on and so forth. But the reality is a lot of people thrived during a recession, right? A lot of people got laid off, they got furloughed, and they never went back to those jobs that laid them off and furloughed them in the first place because someone else came, scooped them up. Tech went crazy. If you were in the tech industry during this time, you were going from salaries like $60,000 to $80,000 to $150,000 overnight. It was insane. This coupled with the real estate market. All of a sudden, people didn't want to buy real estate because they don't know if they're going to get laid off and furloughed. But you know what happened? There was no crash. Really, except for the court of public opinions. There was a crash because of uncertainty and fear. And if you didn't have uncertainty and fear, you bought a house, there's a lot of you that bought a starter home in the pandemic with a 0%, 1.9%, 2.9% interest rate. And that starter home is becoming your forever home because there's a 7% interest rate now. This is another recession, right? So the COVID recession happened not because of anything. It happened because there was fear in the market. So people started saving money. They started scooping in. They started staying home. They stayed home. They didn't go to restaurants because there was fear of contracting the disease. Okay. So now restaurants were going out of business. People were getting furloughed, and this cycle continues. And once the cycle starts, it's very difficult for this cycle to end. It takes a massive workload. And what was done in that time, we all got stipend checks. A lot of people thrived financially during the COVID-19 and never took advantage of it. And the reality is that's put us into a cycle where we probably should have had an actual crash, and that crash never came because we were able to go into what they're calling a soft landing with the stipend checks and with everything else. Now, here's the thing, right? The reality is we're likely in another recession already, but will it become a huge, great recession? That's the question. I read every single comment. What did you do during COVID? Like realistically, if you were to look back during COVID, are there any mistakes that you made financially? Any regrets? Anything you would do differently? And if there's a new great recession happening, what are you going to do differently this time? I'm going to read every single comment. I'm going to give a quick analysis on your strategy. Now back to the video. Here's the thing about a recession. And think about what I just said. A recession happens when a group of people stop spending money. When a group of people are scared and they stop spending money. And then we have this cycle, right? We have this cycle of I'm saving money, so I'm not spending money at corporations. So corporations don't make the profit. So people are getting laid off. So they stop spending money. So they're no longer spending. So the corporations aren't making profit. So people are getting laid off. And this cycle continues until there is a massive change in policy. Stop it. When it comes to a mini recession, that change in policy doesn't need to be stipend checks, bailouts, etc. Right? What we see in these 2008, 2020, etc. It can be the federal interest rate change their rate from 2% to 1.5%. And so now corporate is able to invest more money because they're able to accrue more debt. They're able to go to the banks and say, hey, bank, look, I know we didn't make $1 million, but can you loan me $1 million? I'm going to make more products. Okay. So that simple change with the federal interest rate can make a massive difference because you and I are also willing to borrow more money. It's okay to buy the house despite the fact that I don't have this huge, massive salary because it is cheaper, because I'm going to buy yours market, because I'm getting the house on a stick. The mortgage is not that high, right? So I'm a little bit more confident buying this piece of property. And so these little changes switch to flip. What's happening now is that the little changes are happening prior to the recession. And those little changes are leading us into a recession that would be bigger than what we would have otherwise. So I'm going to give you an example. The tariffs came into effect from one day to the next. Corporate moves at the speed of light. You're in a fast-paced job, you know exactly what I mean. I've got to make decisions now. So in this situation, for a lot of the companies that are spending money for Q4, I'm making that decision based on the fact that, number one, interest rates are still high. Number two, now I have added tariffs, which are going to decrease my profit margin. Number three, there's a trade war. And those tariffs could change overnight, up or down, depending on what is going on in conversations and in rooms I am not allowed to be in. If we remember what I've been saying, a recession happens when a group of people are too scared to spend money. I, as corporate, am I going to be spending money right now? So what happens to my purchase order in Q4? It's going to be lower than the purchase order I would have put in a stable economy because my predicting factors are not there. So surely, why do I care about a stupid purchase order from some company I don't know? Because if the purchase order is lower and they don't make as much profit, guess what happens to the jobs for those people? People get laid off. They stop spending money. My cycle starts, but it starts based on the whim of what's happening with the tariff war. Guess what happens when my purchase orders are lower, you guys? Tariffs go away tomorrow, but there's a shortage. I ordered less. Let's talk about baby strollers, for example. Baby strollers and baby car seats. We all love the Nuna, the Duna, the Guna, whatever, you know what I mean? We are looking at the fact that those same strollers are going to cost more later on this year because of the tariffs. Some of these stroller companies are putting in purchase orders, you guys, for 70% less than what they would have last year. 70%! Tariffs go down in the summer. Okay, I'll put in another purchase order. You know when those are arriving? In January. So what happens if you're a mom giving birth in November? Number one, you're gonna pay more for your stroller. Number two, that's if you find one. And you can't even take your baby out of the hospital unless you have a car seat already bought, right? So you have to make this purchase. Yes or yes. It might be a worse one than you wanted. It might be more expensive than you wanted, but you've got to make the purchase because you're having a baby. And guess what? If you're giving birth in November, you got pregnant in February before this mess even started. You're in a situation that you cannot control. It's the same thing that happens with the recession. So now, as a mom, you've got to make a decision. Do you buy your stroller right now or do you wait for November? You buy it right now, you're spending money today, but you got to save a little bit more because the stroller is more expensive. So you spend a little bit less. So this cycle continues with other companies. You buy it later, got to save up, you got to spend a little less. This cycle continues. You guys get the cycle? So we're going into this cycle just because corporates can't make purchase orders that are even remotely close to the purchase orders they would have made earlier on this year. You buy less Nuna's got to fire people. Nuna's got to lay off people. They're not going to make as much margin because they can't borrow as much debt because the interest rate is still high. So the reality is we have been in a recessionary state for the past few years, regardless of what the GDP says. That's why for some of you, it's been so hard finding a job, right? That's why some of you feel gaslit by what's happening in the news, by what's happening with the economists. Some of you feel like, what are you talking about? The market is great. The market is not great. You're BSing me. It's because we've been in this situation where the COVID pandemic that should have had a crash has not crashed quite yet. So we've got to try to make this crash a little bit smoother so we're not actually crashing. We're just landing the plane in soft water. What's happening right now is that we're coupling that initial crash that should have come and never came with a potential new crash. That's where the debate is. Are we making the fiscal, financial, federal decisions fast enough to prevent that new crash from taking place? To stop the cycle that started in 2020 so that there's not two crashes at the same time. Is this going to be a great recession or just a mild one? Are we going to be able to flip back to that seller's market, or are we stuck in the market that we currently are at for a while? Those are the questions that you should be asking. But here's the answer to all of it. No matter what, there's a winning strategy to every market. I will tell you guys, I sit in boardrooms that are insane with billionaires and people that have more money than God. And I will say they are giddy for a possible recession. That means less expensive labor. That means having to produce less product. That means buying up companies who didn't make the right decision at this point. They're giddy. So regardless of which change it is, there is a winning strategy. Now, here's my thoughts. Are we going into a great recession? Economists say there's a 50% chance. I say probably. But no matter what, you should prepare for it rather than let the situation happen to you. I hope that answers your question. If you have any of them, any more questions, please put them down below. Like I said, I am reading and responding to every single comment. Thanks for watching and let me know. Are you excited or are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you terrified? How are you feeling? If you need professional advice or if you'd like to get together and just have a conversation, I cannot give you financial advice as a person. So unfortunately, but I can guide you into what I would do to prepare. I'm happy to have a chat. Link is in bio. And if you do own an LLC, I can actually give you some investment advice and some information that can put you ahead of the curve. Don't forget to please subscribe and turn on the notifications. My goal is to post once a week information that's going to help you get ahead of the curve. So I'd love to see you in the next video, and I will see you soon. Bye.